Ready for Lowland's first time ever Stuffie pattern, the Octi. All right, let's get going with this tutorial. So there's lots of pieces to get started. We need 2 upper eye panels, 2 lower eye panels, 2 eyelids, 6 side panels, 8 of the inner tentacles, and 2 plastic safety eyes. So to get started, we're gonna start with the eye panel. Lay them out so that you can see how everything's supposed to be. You're going to lay the eyelids right sides together on top of the lower eye panel and have it unfolded as shown, and then place how much stuffing you want in the top part. Fold it back over, and we're going to do a stitch over here. We'll just do a base stitch. You can choose how puffy you want it to end up being. I'm going to show you how I stitch this. I took it very slow, and as I was going, I would occasionally lift up my presser foot to stop any of my fabric from bunching up or getting out of place or having any layers get missed or any scrunched up things, anything like that. You want to make sure you take it very slow around the curve, and I am doing a based stitch right now, meaning it's the longest length that my sewing machine can do. And then after I was able to check and make sure it wasn't pleated anywhere, I know it'll be ready for the serger soon. So I am literally just doing 1 or 2 stitches and then lifting up my presser foot to make sure that everything is in place once again. So do that to both sides. Now you're going to take the corresponding upper eye panel and we're going to pin or clip it along the curve of the lower eye panel. I initially started in that center spot, just wanting to make sure everything was evenly spaced out. In the end, I don't think it was necessary, probably just could have gone from end to end. This you will also want to sew on very slowly. It is one of the trickiest parts going around these curves. So when I do take it to the sewing machine, I'm going to baste it first. But after I clipped it, I kind of did a flip it open to check and make sure that it was looking good, and it was. So anyways, just make sure you clip or pin everything in place. I did like using clips in this section, so if you have clips, I recommend them for sure. So very similarly, as I was basting, I would stop to lift the presser foot at any time. It's important to make sure that all of the layers are coming through at every section. And you can also see how the upper eye panel, it was very easy to let it bunch up, and so I would adjust it and scoot it around every few stitches to make sure that nothing was getting tucked under and it wasn't pleating anywhere. So this just takes a little bit of working with your fabric to make sure that it's all laying flat and hitting in the angles that you want it to fit into, making sure that those curves are coming out nicely. Once I was finished and I pulled it out to take a look at it, you can see how it almost looks pleated, but I just kind of rubbed my fingers over it and I could see that, oh, nope, everything was fine. And if I would just throw it under the iron for a second, then all of that would go away. So it turned out really good. Be sure on the back side under the eyelid to put the adhesive stabilizer for your eyes later. Next, we're placing the side panels on top of the eye panels so that they are right sides together and sewing along the inside portion so that it will create 2 lines in between. Then once that's sewn, we're going to open them up and put them on top of each other. So we're putting 2 side panels in between the eye panels and just sew from one end to the other. Okay, so once that part is done, we are going to start working on the inner tentacles. And so we're going to pull 4 of those out and line them up nicely. And those 3 inner seams is where we're going to do the sewing or be attaching them. So I kind of just attached all of mine together and took it to the machine, but you can also just do 2 at a time and then attach the 2 together similarly to how you did the face. And when they're done, this is what it should look like. Bunch of little eggs. Okay, and so once that part is done, then you can lay out your face again and match up the inner tentacles with the front pieces. Just match them all up, line them up, and we're gonna go from one side and all the way up, down, and around every single leg. A lot of this portion is sewing straight down the legs. However, the parts where you are on the inner curve and the outer curve, I guess like where the seams match up is what I'm referring to, this can be tricky. So just sew up into the seam as close as you can get, and then kind of straighten out the other leg so that it appears to be a straight seam, and just continue on. You just want to be careful not to go in too closely so that you cut the fabric on the opposite leg that you're coming onto. That's the main tip that I have for that. So just kind of straighten it out when you get close enough. And then sew straight again. And the next tricky part is on the curve of the ends of the tentacles. So I just sewed along the curve as far as I could kind of naturally make it curve. And then this is one-handed, so it's a little bit tricky. But what I did was I would lift the presser foot and then kind of tuck my fabric back under to work my way around the tentacle. And I filmed it a second time so you could see a little bit better, so you'll see a different angle in just a moment. But I just kind of lifted and scooted around, lifted, scooted around, and just took it very slow until I got all the way around the curve. And you can see what that looked like once I was finished. I'll show you another view. There you go. So you can see how it kind of worked its way around, but it was one continuous stitch instead of breaking it up, which is something I've previously done. Here is another angle. I apologize, my machine was making the camera wiggle a little bit, but I took the curve as much as I could and then started to, and I'm kind of like not twisting the fabric, but scooting it over. So pick it up, scoot it over just a little bit, pick up the presser foot, scoot it over a little bit, and just kind of slowly work your way around. Here is another example of that inner seam. So I'm going to go straight as close until I hit the seam and then sort of straighten it out into the next section. Okay, so once that whole front piece is done, all of them are sewn nicely, it's time to repeat a lot of those steps for the back side. So you're going to start with the 4 panels and sew them together similarly to how we did the front piece, just those 3 seams in the middle. And then same thing with the tentacles, line up the 4 and do the 3 seams in between all of them to connect them. Okay, once that is completed and I have also sewn it all together, did all the same steps as the first one, you're going to take the front and the back and put them right sides together, and we are going to fully assemble the octopus. So first we're going to sew all the way around the head and into the underneath portion, but you do want to leave a few inches gap to be able to stuff your octopus. So I'm leaving about from here to here. That's how much I'm going to leave empty. And do your best to match up all your seams. Okay, so once that's done, you get to turn this right side out. My video did cut off, but you know how to do that part. So next is stuffing the octopus. These little tentacles took a long time to stuff, but one of the best tips that is in the instructions for this pattern is to use a wooden dowel so that you can nicely shove your stuffing to the end of the tentacle. And the thing that I found to work for me is to just do a little bit of stuffing and use the dowel, and then do a little more stuffing, use the dowel again. And once you have it mostly stuffed, then I just kind of went in with my thumbs and like massaged it and worked through it to try to make it not as lumpy. I also tried doing like when you're playing with Play-Doh and you're trying to make a long strip and you kind of rub it between your hands. I did that too. Okay, so then let's work on the eyes next. I just took something to poke a little hole in the center under the eyelid. And then you get your safety eye and you kind of fit it through that hole, pushed in through that hole. And one thing that you I do in a minute, but I didn't do initially, was making sure that the eyelid was over the eye so that it doesn't get pinned down once you put the backing on. So just be aware of that. So this was my first time. I didn't have any instructions, but what I figured out just by playing around and using the instructions in the pattern is that the part that it kind of looks like a little bowl or a cup, you want to make sure that that is going down onto the eye. So imagine that it's like cupping the eye on the backside, and you just push it on and then it stays in place nicely. And then go ahead and do the other side. Here is a little bit of a closer look of what I mean. So move that eyelid, take your back piece, make sure that the part that is hollow is what goes down towards the eye, pop it in place, and it should be locked on there nicely. So there you go. And now you can stuff the head. Speaking of which, there was a suggestion to use serger ends and tails and extra fabric and things like that. I did do that initially and I mixed it with some stuffing. I found it to be too heavy for this size of stuffed animal. So in the end, I actually removed most of it. But if you have and to finish it off, we're gonna hand sew it closed. So to start, I took my tail ends, wrapped them around my needle, and then pull it down the needle and through the whole piece of thread. And that's gonna create a knot at the end of my thread. And I'll take that and I'm gonna use it to make sure that it secures the thread as I'm starting to hand stitch. So I take that under so that the knot is hidden into the middle part underneath and pull up, and that will get it all started. And then I'll try to show these stitches as best as I can. Basically what you want to do is whenever you go across to an opposite side, cross over closely and then do any traveling underneath. So put your needle, first I'm pinching it all together, put your needle down close to where your thread currently is, and then go over just a little bit and across to the other side, come up. Then go close by so that you don't see a whole lot of thread. Go across to the other side of the fabric, the other fabric, go down, over, and up. And it's just down, over, and up. And you repeat that all the way across the stuffed animal, doing your best to make it as hidden as possible. And that will close everything up, and then you'll make another knot at the end and clip your threads. Here's a little bit closer view. It is blurry, but I was just trying to show you as best I could how I go over, come up, and then just go all the way across. My daughter was obsessed. This octopus is literally as tall as she is. She's been playing with it all week ever since making it. I think this was a win. I hope you enjoy yours, and let me know if you have any questions or comments below. Come follow me at Come Create with Kim on Instagram and we can connect more. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.